News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. There's your closing bell for this Wednesday on Wall Street, where hopes for interest rate cuts were not fulfilled today. We'll have more on that just ahead, and that sent stocks and bonds lower. And we bring you the closing numbers each day here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 lost 8 points. NASDAQ gained 31 points. The Dow is down 172 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.37%. The 2-year yield at 3.93%. Microsoft reported revenue for the fourth quarter, beating the average analyst estimate. Shares of Microsoft up more than 7% in the post-market. Meta gave a stronger than expected third-quarter revenue forecast, a sign the core advertising business is still growing quickly enough to support aggressive spending on AI. Shares of Meta jumped 10% in the post-market. And Ford Motor Company said profit will fall as much as 36% this year because of President Trump's tariffs. Ford shares are down 2% in the post-market. The Federal Reserve decided to leave interest rates unchanged. That wasn't much of a surprise, but two Fed governors dissented. That's the first time that's happened in 32 years. Bloomberg's Mike McKee.
Governors Chris Waller and Mickey Bowman dissented the first time, as John mentioned, that two governors voted against a committee decision since 1993. They preferred a quarter percentage point cut.
Now, as for those two dissenting votes, Fed Chair Jay Powell did not appear too concerned.
What you want from everybody and also from a dissenter is a clear explanation of what your thinking is and what are the arguments you're making, and we had that today. So I think basically this was quite a good meeting all around the table, where people were thought carefully about this and put their positions out there.
And Powell says they're only just beginning to see the impact of Trump's tariffs.
What we see now is basically the very beginnings of whatever the effects turn out to be on goods inflation. And I'll say again, they may be less than people estimate, or more than people estimate. They're not going to be zero. Consumers will pay some of this. Businesses will pay some of this. Retailers will pay some of this.
Fed Chair Jay Powell. Now, speaking of those tariffs, copper futures have plunged after President Trump imposed a 50% tariff on all semi-finished copper products coming into the U.S. The scope of this tariff was not as broad as markets expected. The president stopped short of applying the duty to imports of refined copper. This new tariff rate takes effect August 1st. Copper futures have dropped nearly 20%. President Trump is set to make the final call on maintaining a tariff truce with China before that expires in 2 weeks. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent tells Breitbart the Chinese economic model may fail.
The Chinese model, their economic model, is starting to implode, that somehow they believe that gravity doesn't apply to them in real estate. They're in the middle of a real estate crisis.
Bessent says the Chinese were back on their heels in the trade talks. Economic growth in the U.S. moderated through the first half of the year as consumers tempered their spending and companies adjusted to shifting trade policy. But Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem says that actually provides more insight into the current trade relationship with Canada.
U.S. GDP came out this morning for the second quarter, and you saw a huge drop in U.S. imports that boosted U.S. GDP. Well, that big drop in their imports, that's a big drop in our exports to the United States. That's the flip side of it.
Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem. The Trump administration is pushing for Americans to upload personal health data to new apps run by private tech companies. Leaders from more than 60 companies, including Google and Amazon, meeting at the White House today, talking about a digital health ecosystem to focus on diabetes, weight management, and digital tools for patient check-ins. Officials promise privacy and security, but experts warn of ethical concerns. Former Vice President Kamala Harris will not run for California governor. In a statement, Harris says she's given serious thought to the idea of running for governor, but decided against it. She says for now, her public service will not be in public office. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.